started. Okay, so my name is Karl Kedrovsky. I work at a company, VML. It is a digital marketing company in Kansas City, Missouri. Also, I'm involved with the community in Kansas City, help organize our local Drupal meetup group. And I've been using Drupal since about Drupal 5, but I'm not a panels guy. So who in here is more knowledgeable about panels than me? Anybody?
I don't know what you know, but I'll guess.
Have you built a website using panels?
I have.
Okay, there's one better than me. I have.
If that's the criteria.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So this is like the noob to noob talk, right? So the content for this is really a bunch of research and just looking into panels. What are all the pieces of panels, and how does each one of those panel pieces fit within sites that I may build in the future? So at VML, we've had a kind of a long-running, not really a hatred, but an avoidance of panels, simply because it looks complicated for content managers. Most of our content managers want to type in some text into a field and magic happen. They don't want to rearrange pages. They don't want to create their own. They don't want to create landing pages. They want someone else to do it for them. So we've worked with other folks that have done nothing but panels. So over the course of the last, I don't know, year or two, we've been kind of warming up to the idea of using panels and investigating where it makes sense for the websites that we build. Kind of what I've come to a conclusion is it's going to fit. Panels does fit for a lot of good use cases, but I would kind of hesitate to be like some and say that panels fits everywhere. So hopefully, as we walk through this presentation, then you'll get an idea of all the bits and pieces of panels and where they might fit. So the biggest problem I had understanding panels is that I had seen a lot of talks and I've seen a lot of articles about all the cool things panels could do. So if you get like running through one of the big distributions like Panoply or Lightning or something that uses panels, and isn't this really cool, all the different neat things that this distribution can do, but then not understanding how to put any of that together. So what I want to do today is walk through building up a site using the basic building blocks of panels and just kind of go through each one of them and see how they build on each other and how they all the different features of each one, some of the different features of each one, and how they kind of hold together. So the goals for today is just to understand that, how the panels ecosystem fits together, and kind of just get an idea of what functionality each of those pieces provides, and just kind of see where they may fit into your next project. Now, if I do say something, our panels experts in the room, feel free to raise a hand and tell me what I did wrong. In my last talk, I said the best way for me to understand something is to tell someone that I know how it works, so that they can tell me how wrong I am. It's a lot more effective than asking people, how do you do this? And then they'll say you won't get as many answers as if you say, this is how you do this. So we're going to look at all of these pieces of the panels puzzle. So we're going to look at Page Manager, which underlies everything. We'll look at the panels module. We'll look at panels IPE, Panelizer, mini panels, fieldable panel panes, panels everywhere, all in 1 hour. And most of it's demo. So you can see where I get kind of confused if you've never built a panel site. It's like, well, this is a list, and this is not even all of it. This is what I think are kind of the main pieces that I would use to build websites using panels if I were to do so in the future. But there's nowhere near everything. All right. So let's look at the Page Manager. The Page Manager is the kind of the underpinnings that panels is built on top of. It provides an infrastructure there, as you can see, for adding variants to displaying a page. So the way I think about Page Manager is it intercepts a URL and does something with it other than what the normal Drupal system would do. Okay? And out of the box, it comes with a very robust variant called HTTP response. So a variant is something different. So instead of doing what Drupal is going to normally do with a URL, it's going to do something different with it. And out of the box, Page Manager will replace the normal Drupal response with an HTTP response, like a redirect. So let's go see one. It's very impressive. Now I have a I have a very basic site installed. This is this is a standard Drupal 7 site with nothing special, no real special modules or anything installed. So we are going to and this comes with the CTools package. So I've enabled the page manager, and just for fun, I'm going to clear the cache, and then that provides us with a new menu item called Pages. So we can go in, and it comes with a bunch out of the box. We're not going to even look at that. I want to look at adding a new custom one called Test, and its path is retest. I'll make it my home page, and then it gives you these variant types. And the one that it comes out of the box with, of course, is an HTTP response code. And that for anybody that might not know is a page not found or a redirect, something like that. And that's what we're going to do, is we're going to give it a redirect. So when anybody goes to /test on my new page here, I'm going to redirect them to the front page. All right. So then this is what Page Manager gives us. It gives us all of these abilities to provide a URL and then provide variants for that URL. And that's what we're going to provide right here. I'm going to save it. Now, I can go up to my URL. I can go to test, and it redirects me back to my home page. Impressive. Okay, you'd never use that, right? So nobody would ever use one of those things to get on their website. So let's go and take a look at what you can build on top of that. So the panels module gives you a variant in addition to the HTTP response of panels. So what this thing is going to do is, for panel pages, what it allows you to do is to, instead of, again having Drupal process that URL normally, it is going to render a panel page. And a panel page think of it as overriding essentially the content of your website. So not the nav bar, not the regions, not any of that. It's the content region of your website. It is going to override that and replace it with a content that you can set up inside of panels. So it has two, and it comes with two different modules. One for panel pages, which is just that. It overrides the content of custom panels that you add to that page. So you can lay them out in all different ways. And it also comes with a panel node, which is just a normal Drupal node that uses panels to render its content. And as we'll see, the panel pages, we're going to look at that primarily, are a bit more flexible than panels, but they're not nodes. That's kind of the important distinction there. So let's go take a look at how that works. So we'll just enable panels and panels node. Whoops. Oh, that's right. Okay, now in here, now we can go back to our pages. And this is the new custom we set up, so let's just change this one. Instead of doing a redirect, let's make it a panels page. So we go back to our variant that we set up, and then, oops, it's deleted. Because I don't want the variant that is a redirect. I want to add a variant that is a panel type. And this has both the response code and the panel. And I'm going to use just the simplest. You can tell there's all kinds of knobs and buttons and things in here. We're going to keep it relatively simple. And everything I'm going to do here is going to use a 2-column layout. And there are lots of layouts. This is a very kind of small set of them that are kind of whittled down. So you can have, I'm going to use a simple 2-column for all of them just so we can see how they work, not how all of the different layouts work. Okay, standard here, and now we get, since I chose that left and or a 2 column, I can now put in something in the left and right. Now this gives us the option of putting in all kinds of things. We'll look at a couple of these as we go on a little bit farther, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to just use a custom pane for each one of these. So this is just custom content that I'm adding to each one of these panes, the left and the right. All right. So now we have our content in there. I can create the variant. It's all nice and happy. Update and save that. Now, and I want to put this in a menu just so we can keep it a handle to it. Okay. Save and save. All right, let's go back here to the. Now we have a menu item here that has a test panel, and there it is. So instead of rendering an HTTP response or doing anything else, I now have this custom panel with 2 different panes in it. Now you can see how you could, if you use a more kind of robust layout, how all of the different widgets and things you can stick in here. And you can also, not sure how far we want to go with this, you can also add additional variants. Let's add one real quick. What do I call? Just for logged in users. So let's say you wanted to have two different, you want to have one URL, and if people were logged in, they got additional content than when they were logged out. So you could just create an easy, another 2 column layout. And let's just put and we'll give it a jumping. Okay. And on this one, let's put in something really different. Let's grab a widget powered by Drupal. That's great. Create that variant, and now we have 2 of these in here, and then we're going to go with the selection rules. So what we can do is we can use a role. There's a bunch of it in here. We're just going to use a role to make it simple, so we're authenticated. And then we'll go up to update. I would save it, and then we'll go to the test one. The first one we did, we will call it. There we go. Role anonymous. Okay. Now when we go back to our test panel, we see that we're logged in, but if I log out and I go to the test panel, I get the old one. So you can set up multiple variants of this panel page depending on all kinds of criteria to render it in different ways. That would be good for things like landing pages, for marketing campaigns and things like that. You can probably think of all kinds of different reasons why you want to render slightly different content on the page. So that's what you can do with just the panes out of the box. You can set up a whole bunch of those, or as many of those as you want, and they're all just listed under here, under these pages. So you can just create all of these one-off, just panel layout pages as you want. The other thing that it gives you out of the box is a panel node. So when you create a panel node, then you can choose the different layout. And give it a very creative title. We'll put it in a menu. Sounds about right. I don't want it on the front page. Publish it. And then I get a node now that has different columns. Save that. And oops. Then you make panel node. Okay. There we go. Now you got a left and a right. And so now you can create nodes, and they're listed in the the same content listing as any of your other nodes are. So it gives you a simple content type just to create nodes that have different layouts. Then you can also that's all I wanted to show on that one.
So the content type's always going to be panel?
Yes.
No matter, like, you can have this kind of panel, that kind of panel node, it's all going to be one different.
For this module, yes. We're going to get to another one here in just a minute that does, I think, what you're thinking of. You create multiple node content types that are panelizable. And it uses a module, oddly enough, panelizer, which might be the next one. No, it isn't. Okay, so one of the knocks against panels is that the interface is ugly. So as you can see how the interface was a little clunky, it looks old, looks like something out of the 80s. Panels IPE goes a long way of solving that and gives you an in-place editor for panel pages. So it just provides a nice, slick, easy, or nice looking interface for managing panels. So let's go enable that. And back over here. Now we can go to panels and settings. And now we have two different renderers. So the standard one is the one we've already looked at, which is that kind of ugly gray blue interface with all the little wheels. But this will set the default renderer to the in-place editor. Now we'll go, since we've already created a couple, we'll just go change them real quick. So now we have this option of either using the standard renderer or the in-place renderer for each of our pieces of content, or each of our panels or pieces of content that have panels on. So now, instead of having to go use these tabs, we have these little buttons at the bottom. So I can either customize this page, and now I have a nice, right in the page, in-place editor that I can add or edit your content. So I just added in a block, powered by Drupal. You can move things around. So I can put it at the bottom. I like it. I'm going to save it. Now I've got the powered by Drupal block at the bottom of this pane. You can also change the layout, so it just gives you a nice clean interface for swapping either the layout or the content. I can't imagine building a panels site without using the in-place editor. I don't know of anything that it doesn't work with or causes issues with, and it gives the content manager a much nicer way of managing the content. Potentially, if you had some real weird, wacky layout of a page that didn't render well in place, then you might have to use the old admin page for the standard editor. But this one really goes a long way to make it very, very usable. Okay. Next one I want to talk about, mini panels. Okay, mini panels are a lot like blocks, and actually they are blocks, and they can also contain blocks. So what they do is they create, I think about them as blocks that are built with panel panes. So you can create a block that renders on the page, and then the content in that block is all laid out using panels. Okay, so instead of the content of your page being laid out with panels, an individual block is being laid out in panels. So let's look at that one. Panels. Alrighty, let's go to the. Let's stick right here in the panels node, and let's over here. Let's add a new. Where'd it go?
What are you looking for?
Mini panels.
You can't create them in the IP. Create them under structure mini panels.
You can do it. Maybe this is one reason not to. You do it here. Did I not? Maybe I'm hallucinating. All right. Oh, I'm thinking something. Never mind. You're right. All right. Forget the last 30 seconds of what I was just saying. So you don't create them that way. That's thinking of something else. So just like you would have for like blocks, you have a selection under structure for mini panels, and then just like with content items or anything else, you'll get a list of the mini panels that you've added. So we'll add one, and I want to create a mini powered by. What I want to add in here is, I don't want to add any kind of contextual information or filter out anything. I just want to create a mini panel can be used anywhere. Simplest thing. Give a little title, and in this one, we'll give it some just content again. Mini panels, all are cool. And then over here on the right side again, we'll just add a powered by Drupal. I'll finish that one up. So now we have on our list, we have a mini powered by mini panel. Now I can go in my panel node. Now I have mini panels, and I have it here, so I can just add it right to that pane. We'll just leave it at the top. Now I've got that panel pane up there. So you can also, the kind of the unique thing about, one of the unique things about mini panels is that they're also blocks. So they show up just like any other block. Right here. So I can add it to, let's just add it to the, which region is that? Sidebar first. And then we have our mini panels right here in the region. So again, if you had a lot of like block information that needed to have very complicated layout rules, and they had to have lots of different variations, then mini panels would be a good solution for that. So instead of writing out custom blocks or custom HTML and blocks and things like that, you can use a mini panel to create these really complicated block layouts. All right. Next one. Now we're going to get along to the one that you just asked about, the panelizer. So this allows you to use panels to lay out nodes. So instead of taking over the overall whole page content layout, you're actually just re-rendering the node page. It's like a panel node, only it's got a few different aspects that we'll take a look at. It's quite a bit more flexible. So let's enable the panelizer. The home page. Okay, now I'm going to go and get, let me go set up. Let me use the page content type for this, and I'm going to add in an image field. I'm going to reuse this example, so I'm going to give it a unique name. Just keep all the defaults. Okay. Now I've got an image and a body on my page, and now I can go to off panelizer, and I'm going to panelize the default. Do a default page. There we go. For the all right, so here is the default setting for let me back up. One of the reasons this is a bit more flexible is that you can override the different view modes. So you can have a different panels layout for teasers and another panel layout for the default rendering. So if you're looking at the whole node, you get one layout. If you're looking at a teaser, you get another one. I'm only going to do the default right now, but you could do teaser and then whatever other view modes that you want. So I want this one to use Inplace Editor. I don't want to link anything for the. And then you have these layouts. So I'm going to give it the default layout of 2 columns, oddly enough. And then I think that is it for that one.
I think you have to save the.
Oh, did I not save it? Thanks. You're right. There it is. And I want, thanks for reminding me, because there's a. So what I want is on the body on the left and in the image on the right. And then, because I'm using panels, I'm going to set the settings in here for how I want that image to be displayed. So normally I would set this in like the view mode on the node. When I'm laying it out using Panelizer, then I'm going to use the settings in Panelizer. So I'm going to hide the label, and then I want to use a smaller image for that. Thanks. Save that. All right, I think we're good. Let's go create a page. All right. Still have my warm Ipsen. Give me a find picture. Let's put that in the menu. This page, it's good. Let's save it. Oh, look at that. My wife hates that picture. That's me after a month trying to grow a mustache for Movember, and somebody told me to try to look mean, and I looked grumpy. Whatever. So now we have this node. You'll notice you have an extra Panelizer tab on here. So here's where you can actually change the settings, the layout, content. You can add stuff in here, or you can use, since we use the IPE, you can just do it right here. So I can add just random stuff to a single node in here without having to actually edit the node and create a field for it. So if you have 1 or 2 unique nodes, let's say I want to add my Powered by Drupal to this one, just because. And then I can save it as custom, or I can save it as the basic page default. I'm just going to save it as a custom one-off page. So now just this one page that I created with these panels is going to have that Powered by Drupal widget on, or block. And you can change the layout of it too. It just you just provide the defaults for the page when you set it up. Easy peasy. Next one. We're doing on time. Oh, we're motoring. Somebody think of a lot of questions. We're going to have plenty of time. So for the question about whether panelizer versus panel nodes, so the panel node is just a single node type. Unless you had the simplest use case for panelizing a node, I think I would always use panelizer. Panel node just for me seems to be just too limited. So the panelizer can be used on multiple nodes. You can create as many of those as you want. Then you can apply, panelizer can also be applied to any entity, which is also different. So you can have users and taxonomy terms, any entity that you can think of, you can panelize those. So it's definitely a very powerful module. And then again, like we talked about earlier, it applies to individual view modes. Okay. All right, here's another kind of Swiss Army knife, fieldable panel pane. So let's say we wanted to be able to add panes to our, we've been adding panes using just one-off kind of content. So what if we wanted to create panes that we wanted to add to panels, kind of like, have you ever used the bean module? Where you create blocks that you can add fields to? So with fieldable panel panes, you can create panes that have fields on them. Okay? So they're actual entities, so you can add fields to them. They can have revisions and everything, kind of like nodes. The idea here is you can build up this whole library of pane types, essentially, and then you can create all of these different instances, just like nodes, right? You have these different pane types, essentially, that you can create a whole bunch of these things are, and then you can use them all over your site. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed, but when I like to do demos.
No.
No? We'll probably do a few in a little bit. Fieldable panels, panes. Okay. And then we want to go, let's go to, now you get a new menu under structure for fieldable panel panes, and we'll just add one. What do we want to call this thing? Pane. Add a name. But just like when you would set up a new content type, same thing. Okay, we're good. Let's take all the defaults again. Everybody's happy. I have this thing that has a title, a name, and an image. I think the name and the title is probably redundant, but that's okay. So now we can list them all, so we don't have any. I'm going to add one. I add one called Anderson Cooper. Does anybody think I look like Anderson Cooper? Somebody told me I look like that guy. I don't think so. No. So this is, if you're creating them like this, and this is where I got confused. Remember before where I was trying to create a mini panel from the actual node? I was confusing it with fieldable panel panes. Well, I'll show you how you do it. But you can actually go into a panel's configuration. Then you can say add content to a pane, and one of the options will be fieldable panel pane. And it won't have this box checked. So you can create one-off fieldable panel panes that can't be shared around the site. So it's unique to that one page. When you create them like this, you create them kind of like blocks. They're usable everywhere. So we're going to create this, and we're going to create a category. I'll show you why in a second. And then we'll create, this is a Anderson Cooper fieldable panel pane instance So now I have a instance of my new fieldable panel pane with Anderson Cooper on it. So we'll go back to our test page, and we'll customize it. And this time we'll add a foo. So this is where you can add one. So if you can go in and you can just add it right here, and you can create a panels pane and just create one, just one off. And then you can make it reusable or not. But if you don't, it's just applicable to this one page. This is where the category comes in. So I put it in the food category, so you can categorize all of these different fieldable panel panes that you create, so you can keep them all bundled up into nice categories. I'm just going to pick Anderson Cooper. I just want the full mode, view mode, and there he is, and all of his glory. And I screwed it up, but we'll save it and I'll fix it. Okay, can anybody guess what I didn't do? Yeah, every stinking time. Okay, so let's go. Edit. And
Go back
oh
to
no.
manage display.
Yeah. My image. I feel like it's just like a node. I want a medium. Now I can go back to my page. Anderson Cooper. Don't see the resemblance. There you go. All right. Next, okay. Questions? Anybody? All making sense, sort of? Nobody's sleeping yet. Last one. Panels everywhere. So panels everywhere is different than what any of the other things we've talked about. So instead of taking over the rendering of content, panels everywhere takes over the rendering of the entire page. So instead of thinking of it as your node template, think of it as your page template. So this takes over. So now instead of laying out your page in regions with your page template, panels everywhere gets rid of all that. Oh, and it's also been, you can also think about it as a replacement for Drupal's block placement system. So in this case, you get to decide where all of the blocks go using the panels layout. Let's see. Oops. Now this one we're not going to take too much of a look at because it makes a mess of things. One of the downsides or the kind of the gotchas of this is it doesn't play nicely with a lot of themes HTML, and you'll see that here in just a second. Oops. Oh, clear it. What did I do? Okay. Yeah, enable it. And that is under panel settings. This is kind of buried under here. There it is, everywhere.
Whoa. This is a total new way I didn't know how you do this.
There you go. Ah, you did. We both learned something today.
Yeah. The way I usually do it is I go to the page manager and then it's an entry there and I click enable.
Yes, you can do that too. Yeah. We'll take a look at that in a minute. We're going to go there in a second. So I'm going to enable it everywhere. Then I'm going to provide a sample variant for the site template, and that's where it is on that. It'll show up on that page that we were just talking about. Okay. Now this is where things get ugly, literally. So Bartik doesn't play very nicely with the panels manager. So one thing that that you'll see if you want to try using panels everywhere, make sure you take a look at the README file. It's got like a lot of good instructions, and it also tells you to create a blank theme so that you can at least see what's going on. So I created a theme that has nothing but an info file. It has no templates or anything in there. It's just an info file. So this is what the panels everywhere is going to render for you. So it's taking care of rendering everything. So since we enabled the default variant, it has like a column over here on the right, and then the main content on the left. So let's go. We can take a look at that. So if we go to the pages, so it creates this variant for panels called the Panels Everywhere site template. Well, let's edit it. And by default, it's using a builder's layout, but since I'm using 2 columns everywhere, I want to use 2 columns here too. It's just so you can see how this thing is working. Oops. What am I doing? Okay, I got 2 columns, content. I want the main content on the left. I want user login on the right. So this is how you can kind of see how your navigation's going on the right side. I'll leave that there, just for fun. So now we've laid out our entire page. We have a left side and a right side, so we have a 2-column panel now. Main content, headers, all that kind of stuff's on the left. Then we've got the login, which won't display, and then because we're logged in, we have the navigation on the right side. And this is going to look really awful. So there you go. So now I've got the navigations over here, back to our test page. So now this is the main content, which is laid out in 2 columns. And then you have that laid out into 2-column page layout. Easy peasy. You can see how it gets overwhelmingly complicated at times, right? And then, as you can imagine, sometimes as a content manager, given a site that has a lot of this stuff enabled to make everything super flexible, how overwhelming that would be if you didn't really need to do it. Which is why I would use a lot of these things sparingly when you're building sites, and certainly knowing your content manager audience before you start giving them the tools like this in order to completely rearrange the layout of the pages. And there are alternatives to doing these types of things. I saw an article the other day about how to, I think it was from Lullaby, on how to do panels-ish kind of layouts using entity references by defining a page kind of content type, and then saying, I want these nodes in the main content area and these nodes in the right sidebar. So he didn't have panels, so he just made different regions on a node in order to lay out things like you would with panels. And I've built sites like that before too. If you want to get some additional information, those are all of the modules I'm going to go through. I'm going to post these. I'll post a link to the presentation in on the Drupal.org site for this talk, and I'll have all these links in it. There's a whole bunch of articles that I found really helpful. Here at the top, the overview for developers, landing pages with Panelizer, all those are really good. There's a state of panels from DrupalCon 2015, which is good if you want to kind of understand where things are headed in the panels ecosystem. And then there's a series on Node 1 on Page Manager, which was pretty good. It helped me understand how that thing worked. And then Panoply and Lightning are 2 distributions that use panels a ton. Obviously, Panoply probably a lot more than Lightning. So if you want to see what's possible, or potentially how to set up things a little bit differently, we've talked about, those would be 2 good places to look. And then I've also got links to each individual module that we looked at today. Questions? Everybody's snoring. Helpful? Confused? Good. All right. Was anything confusing? We have a panels expert in the room. I used to use panels. Anything else? Anything? Once? When I stop talking, DrupalCorn camp is over.
Except for the sprint.
All right. Except for the sprint. Yeah, everybody go to the sprint tomorrow. I'll be there. All right, thank you.